Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce you all to Stephen Thair. He is the CTO and co-founder of the wonderful company known as DevOps Group. He is also a Microsoft regional director and has over 25 years of experience in the IT industry. If you really want to know about his passions, then ask him about where he got his backpack.
That is true.
And please give him a warm round of applause as he presents his talk, The Future of Operations Roundtable. Thank you very much.
Yay! Hello. Yeah. What's this talk about? It's not a talk. I have no slides. I have no presentation. I actually want you guys to actually contribute to this. So, sucked in, you all came to the thing where you actually expected to do something. Basically, I've been having lots of conversations with various people, Microsoft and various other companies about what's the role of the IT professional in a cloud world. Where's the future going? Because my suspicion is that there are a lot of IT people out there that don't actually really know where their career is going at all. We knew the on-premise world. We could hug our servers. There's actually a really good presentation at Ignite by a guy who's an SRE at Microsoft, works for Microsoft IT, and he gives this whole presentation about being a server hugger and how he loves hugging his servers, and now he can't hug his servers anymore. And so really, this is market research for me. I want to try and understand what you guys are doing and how you're managing systems in the cloud, and whether my suspicion is that we had on-premise, we had ITIL, we had all these really clearly defined roles. I was the SAN guy, the storage guy. I was the core networking guy or girl. I was the think of all those traditional roles that we have. In my history, I was the IIS guy. You know what I mean? That was my thing. I was the app server layer and doing all the IIS stack. That was my technical passion from IIS 3 through to IIS 7. But I don't think that people know where these roles are going in the future. And really, I just wanted to get some of these people together just to have a conversation to see if you guys are thinking the same thing, and what, for those people who are running systems in the cloud, is where do they see the evolution of the patterns and practices that they're currently doing. And then I'm going to draw a bit of a mind map and see if we can have a conversation. So my first question is, who is working in a company that is running cloud systems in production at scale? Okay, that's awesome. Okay, well, put it this way. If it goes down, your company loses a lot of freaking money. That's my definition of scale. You might only have one server. My biggest claim to fame was I built an IIS platform for BNP Paribas in 1999 that did a 40 million, no, that wasn't that. It was 120 million euro bond issue, and the site was up for one day. So it was literally spin up AS active server pages, spin up this website, it did this bond trade, and then we took the whole thing down. We spent $250,000 on the platform. They didn't care. They'd made shed loads of money out of the bond transactions. So yeah, it's really about value. So I guess my first question for those people who put their hands up is, are you still following an ITIL framework model way of managing your systems? Does anybody want to? So who put their hand up?
Parts of ITIL, like incident management, release management, not so much.
Yeah.
Management, not so much. So we don't really implement it fully. We like that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to have to. Maybe not ITIL, but some sort of same tenets, change control, release management, has been implemented in some fashion.
Okay, so incident management you're definitely doing. Yeah. You think there needs to be you're doing some sort of release management?
Change control will get harder, I think, with cloud. Hard to keep on top of.
Okay. Does anybody else have any, do you are you following a framework? Do you have an operations framework that you're following and you're managing your systems? Or are you just making stuff up as you go along?
We're definitely making it up as we go along.
Okay, so there's a lot of making it up. How's that working out for you?
We're quite small, so I think we get away with a lot that you wouldn't get away with in a much larger organisation.
So small, so we can. Okay. So that's good. So what do you think that you do that you wouldn't be able to get away with in a larger organisation?
I think in a smaller organisation, the risks are lower.
Okay.
So the questions you have to answer, they're fewer and less awkward. And there's just less people asking them as well. It's inherent in being small. If you fail, less bad things happen.
Yeah.
They happen at a smaller scale as well.
Okay. Is everybody familiar with the concept of VAR, value at risk? So it's a way of basically calculating if I'm ASOS and I'm doing 3 billion a year, and what is it, 45, was it 45 orders a minute or a second? Yeah, at peak, average order value of 120 euros. I think we calculated it was something like 3 or 4 million, for a 15 or a 20 minute outage. So there is basically metrics for how you calculate this value at risk and the value of downtime and the value of reputational loss and the value of all these kind of things. Is everybody familiar with GDPR? Okay, so yeah, no vendor has come knocking on your door to have you the magic GDPR in a box solution. Yay! There was a great section at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in Las Vegas where the lady who was the chief risk officer for Nike, she sort of put up there, it's like, Nike's total value, 34 billion or something in revenue a year, total possible fine under GDPR, 4% of worldwide revenues. You know what I mean? So coming out, it's like 1 point something billion or whatever is the, was the value at risk. And then she kind of worked it down. Chances if something goes wrong, we get caught. 100%. If we're not compliant, we're going to get caught. And then worked it down about, with that we get the maximum fine was about 50-50 or something. So she sort of said, worked it out as that her value at risk was like $530 million was the value of screwing GDPR up. The negative benefit, basically, or the negative ROI. So you sort of say, well, if I've got 500 and whatever million risk, I can afford to spend a fair bit of money to get it fixed. So I know you obviously, Ian, your guys, you were talking about one of your goals for 2019 was to start to, push more of this DevOps practice into operations. Do you feel that they understand what their job roles are in the future and where the cloud operations is going? Do they have a cloud operations framework?
No, I think we're at kind of a point of forking in the road. I think at the moment we've still got an operations function that's fairly traditional. It's still sticking to its kind of ITIL principles and likes to see things done in the old way. But you've got part of that function which is actually starting to schism. They're starting to realise that actually that isn't the reality anymore. So you've got the guys that understand the virtual world, that understand the kind of the infrastructure as code and all that kind of side of the world. Mm-hmm. They're starting to pivot. And they're realising that actually there's a different way of doing this. You've still got the other side of the functions which say remaining quite traditional and trying to almost maintain those barriers between operations and development and engineering. They still see themselves as being kind of ringmasters of everything and kind of coordinating key activities. But actually they've got less and less knowledge about those inherent systems than they ever had before. Beforehand, they used to be the people that knew exactly what went on all sorts of servers, because those servers are probably cohabited by 7 or 8 different kinds of applications that came from multiple different areas, and they're the only people that understood them. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, they haven't spun that infrastructure up, they've never seen that infrastructure. That infrastructure could be being destroyed on a regular basis. It's on a technology stack they've never seen before or heard of in their lives, and yet they're still, trying to almost maintain the illusion of the fact that they're still controlling that world. And it's been quite interesting for us.
You don't have the gatekeepers now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, to finish that point, and then we'll come on to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, so much, you don't have the gatekeepers now. You know, it's more about, like, when you talk about policies, guardrails, you don't have like that single person and you need to like appease it. You know, it's like everyone's kind of equal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have anyone like, 100% control over a server.
Yeah.
The whole cattle and pets thing.
Yeah.
I think the other side is our systems are now so complex. It used to be Windows services, and there used to be so many of them, and we were all sitting on we actually sat on, in effect, one of 3 big SQL servers. The entire company sat on actually it was kind of one database that was then kind of replicated out in different things. It's very easy to
Don't tell Alex that he's going to be killing himself.
I could literally almost, put my arms around it and go, that is ASOS when I joined the company. Whereas now,
You're a server hugger.
Whereas now, we've got something like 700 VMs in the cloud. We've got an infinite number of PaaS services. We've got 80,000 billable items in Azure, something like that. So you can't. No one person can understand that. It's physically impossible. And this is what you've had to drive the platforms out. You've had to drive that knowledge about for incident management and issue management, performance management, all that stuff has to go out to the platforms. And that means the operations teams have to operate fundamentally differently in what they do. As long as they don't have value, I think that what they do changes is change fundamentally.
Okay.
It reminds me of a session, I don't know if any of you went to Pipeline a couple of years ago when Dan North did the keynote. He did a keynote called Ops and Operability. It was excellent, it was hilarious. And he was talking about this problem where, so we've gone down the cross-functional teams that own their products and their services all the way. But if we still have one shared operations team at the end of it that looks after the thing, then like there was a day when the operations team could define your platform. You'd say, well, you'll use SQL Server and you'll use C# and stuff. And once you give so much power to the individual product teams, they will be more done, which means that the operations team end up supporting way too much stuff that no one human can understand it. And so he's kind of saying, look, if you're going to go down this road, you need to work out how to organise, like, you need to not lumber one poor operations team and make them responsible for it. The thing is, I guess, that either you do it entirely or you don't do it at all. And going a way where you have individual product teams that have the autonomy to come up with their own infrastructure and one shared operations team that actually has to manage an infrastructure that they have no part in making, that is probably a way that is a bit doomed to fail.
So that's why we're kind of in that schism point at the moment, is that operations are just kind of waking up to that. I think they're playing catch up a little bit. We're redefining the boundaries of where operations and the engineering teams own stuff. So it used to be, the operations team used to own the physical server. They used to probably own the operating system. They used to own the patching, and then you used to put your software on top of it, and that's where you kind of drew the line between the two. I think we're now drawing the line of, operations might own the underlying networking strategy and implementation of within Azure, and they might own that bit, and then the teams build the infrastructure on top of that. So we're now trying that kind of line starting to emerge.
Okay.
Whereas up to now, the teams also own some of that underlying infrastructure, and we've got some problems because of that,
Yeah.
because they're not experts in networking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
The operations team have basically got a choice. Either, if they want to focus on the hardware, then they need to end up seconding over to a product team and being the hardware expert in that product team. Or if they want to focus on the networking layer, then they stay in the operations team that handles networking. Like, do they need to make an active choice which way you're going to go?
I think we're going to end up possibly with third choices, which is, rather than going and messing things like, I think you can kind of guys that drive out the templating, for example, might become more of a platform engineer like my team are. But yes, we are starting to see those people going in different directions. Either you're going to stay on you could stay on the physical hardware side, because we still have physical networks, we still have printers and servers, we still have all that stuff around still. So some people are going in that direction because that's the world they know. We've got people that are gravitating towards teams because actually they want to go and actually get closer and be the operational aspect of platform teams, and they can add value in that space. Or they're becoming much more of a DevOpsy, I could call it the shared services kind of function, where they kind of set the policies, the strategy, might do the enterprise level, ARM templating, all that kind of stuff that teams can then consume. And that's kind of 3
So it reminds me an awful lot. So I used to work for Redgate. I don't work there anymore, but they used to do the kind of thing that most companies do. Is every couple of years, as a cycle, they would have a reorganisation where they would basically reassess where they're at, what they need, what the company needs now, and then they'll try and put all their people into it, which is always a horrible, stressful time for everybody at Redgate because you're afraid I'm going to be made redundant, I'm going to be asked to move into a role that I don't want to do, and they always try very hard to make sure everyone's happy. But he always used to make the point that, look, once you get beyond about 12 people in your company, there's no good way to organise it. There isn't a good way to organise everyone because the best way to organise any company is we all sit around the table and work together.
Okay.
But once you get beyond the size where you can all share 2 pizzas and sit around the table, that doesn't really work anymore. You necessarily have to specialise in stuff.
Okay, take a breath. Take a breath. Okay, because I want to unpack. You all made a lot of points, and you're going too far away, and I have to bring it back. So there's a couple of things that came out of that I wanted to have a conversation about. Somebody said they're no longer the gatekeepers. Do you think that the product team, the multidisciplinary team that's building the software, in an SRE model, there's an argument that they do not have an unfettered right to production. The only path to production is the SRE team can say yes or no. Because if you exceed your error budget, your access to production gets cut off. So the question then becomes, should those product teams have an unfettered right to production, or is partly operations' role to say, actually, we are still the gatekeepers of production?
That feels like a contradiction.
Okay, so the reason I say that is because somebody else used the phrase guardrails. So one of the things that, I know Microsoft's working very hard on is stuff like Azure Blueprints. GitHub is doing GitHub Blueprints. You have Azure Policy. You have HashiCorp Sentinel. AWS has policy frameworks now. Everybody's trying to look at a way to say, we are going to have these policy frameworks that's like, if you've ever taken, who's ever taken their kids 10-pin bowling, you have those inflatable things that they put up in the gutter. So, what happens if you go a bit too far, you'll bump into this thing and you'll bounce back in the right way. So one of the things that we've been talking about was that the role of operations as it evolved is you were the people who ultimately you build those guardrails, you build those templates and a way to make sure that the ops teams can't veer off. Because at the end of the day, you still have PCI compliance. If you're in financial services, you might have Sarbanes-Oxley, or, if you're in healthcare in the US, you'd have HIPAA. There's many other FCA compliance, GDPR. There's still lots of compliance stuff, and that's non-negotiable. You have to get that right. Does that feel like that operations of the future is going to be more focused on building the guardrails and then saying this is the playground in which you can operate?
That's what we're investing heavily in doing that right now. Okay. These zero policy type stuff. It's about, I call it in my talk, safety nets.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build this stuff in so teams inherently can only do the right thing within a certain scope. So they can, they can provision any VM they like for Azure, as long as it comes from a golden image. So we know it's going to be inherently secure. It's going to have all the right patching applied to it. It's going to have all the right kind of stuff. If they go into a subscription, we're going to enforce tagging, so we know that we know where that asset comes from and what it's got on it. So those kind of things.
And who can pay for it?
And well, that's the other side. Yeah, who's going to pay for it? Apparently, it's free.
I know what your Azure bill is, Ian. It's not free.
Yeah, I know it. But that we're investing heavily now, and we're working heavily with the infrastructure team around those kind of areas. So actually, the teams are, we're taking things like golden subscriptions now. So we can spin up subscription, all your underlying networking is already built in for you, and then you just build on top of it. So you haven't got to worry about that piece, but we know we've got the governance by design.
Yeah.
We haven't got to be policemen, we know it's there inherently.
So you want to be the architects and the builders, and then the product teams can do they can decorate anything inside. You get the 3-bedroom house, the 4-bedroom house, or the 5-bedroom house, and then how you decorate it inside is up to you. But you don't get to build a completely different house.
Yeah, and that kind of gives us that, because I talked about the trade-off between enterprise and platform there.
Yeah.
You work out what the enterprise is responsible for, and then you get out the right, and you let the teams get on what they need to get on.
Okay.
You've got some confidence they're not going to go off the reservation too far.
Anybody in this side of the room want to have a comment? Yeah, go for it.
I do think that there's more than it. You mentioned different teams, or like I said, there's a networking team, there's an infrastructure team. It should be more of a may be certain levels of governance, but they should be working together with their engineering team or the development team. Because PCI is a joint responsibility. Governance is a joint responsibility. It's not the responsibility of one team. That's everybody's responsibility at all levels to kind of do that. So from my point of view, I think creating, like having, I couldn't using the word DevOps, but having having people work together in a DevOps role or an SRE role together, or more of like a product delivery team, I guess, as you will, is I think maybe the kind of the way that
We do have them. No, I've got product engineers in the platform. That's how we work. But however, there are some things that are enterprise concerns. So things like tagging. That's an enterprise global problem across all the platform teams. Haven't got to work with them to do that. That's just going to happen. So those kind of things, we have kind of a central function that will build out those that we need for everybody. Things like PCI, absolutely. I've got one of my platform engineers today who looks after our PCI platform, and that is massively a joint project between all areas actually to make sure that's compliant.
So one of the things we talked about, actually, if you go to the GitHub stand, they've got a copy of Andy Orum's book, The Guide to Inner Sourcing. It's very lightweight, but one of the concepts that we're exploring and was started to come through very heavily at DevOps Enterprise Summit in Vegas was the concept of enterprise open source, enterprise shared source, inner source, whatever you want to call it, which is the idea that all of the source code in the organization is public within that organization, and you have the same concept you have in an open source product of you can submit a pull request, and there's contributors and core committers and maintainers. There's a level of hierarchy on who can approve and who can merge and stuff like that. So for what I think that's really interesting, and I completely agree. There's got to be that collaboration, but what I see is that collaboration is implemented like an open source project. So if you want to contribute, there's the Azure blueprint, there's the framework, there's the whatever. You first, then you. But pull request. This idea that I'm going to be the only person who can touch this stuff. We talk to our customers a lot. Both AWS and Microsoft recommend that you start your cloud journey by starting up a cloud center of excellence. To which I always respond, I've worked in large-scale enterprise financial services organization. Nobody from the center of excellence ever actually came to help me do my job. They came to tell me how to do my job, to which I replied. And sorry for those people on this side who didn't see that. It wasn't. So we're trying to get them to turn the language now is about being a cloud enablement team. We are here to help you, enable you to. We're going to move all these blockers out of the way. We're going to move to a PaaS type environment. We'll offer you all these services through a PaaS platform. So you have.
Yeah, so we're talking about compliance, etc., and a lot of it's just NFRs. So it's about any culture of NFRs, and I think that begins with development. So obviously the code you write does dictate the platform sits on and this kind of specs it needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we talk about like chef left security, but it's more like chef left data. So you have that conversation early on. So that culture of NFRs, performance, security, that's happened early on.
So when we talk about NFRs, we've banned the word NFRs with our customers. We talk about operational requirements, and because the minute you put the word non in front of it, mentally, it's a non-functional requirement. It doesn't matter whether the non is a modifier to the word functional. It's just non. Oh, it's not important anymore. It's literally the way people's minds work. Yeah. Okay. So Gail.
So you mentioned the openness, like opening like the configuration, but you do that for any platform. When you start sharing it online, it's a communication issue, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It's back to the communication where you have a control repo which controls your platform, which is an enablement service. So whether you have a policy or you have like guardrails, like you don't want things to happen, it's still part of this enablement. It's like it's not different. And I don't really like the approach where you have a governance team or persona that is going to tell you that you can't do this because it's going to cost too much. It's more like I want to be able to do this, and you're going to work with that team to say, but if it goes above this, we should not need this. Let's just make sure we don't, fat finger it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what on that, right? But it's about the communication and the enablement, and I would say it's not new, but it's really like a.
So who for those people who are running systems at scale have had that that cloud bill, or 3 months later found there was a whole bunch of servers running there that should have easily been turned off 3 months ago, and you've spent somewhere between thousands or tens of thousands and things. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Alistair.
I guess I have some unique opinions on this stuff, but I don't know if gatekeeper is the right approach, but
Yeah, I'm not saying it is.
we definitely look for choke points.
Okay,
And
I like that. Choke points.
without the choke points, we have no control over our environment. It's important to give everyone as much flexibility as they can, as little overhead as possible, but at a certain point, I don't think it's up to ops to decide the gates, but there's finance teams, there's marketing teams, there's support teams, the business owner group needs to have control over being able to slow down and speed up the process of releasing features.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry,
To
you.
add on that, potentially like a way that it could go is like developing more in-house skills within the IT org, like business analysts or IT analysts, and like having sort of that ROI component, or even like how you define what you're going to monitor, things like that, as part of it, like an evolved skill set.
So better analytical skills, which comes back to the whole data-driven. How do we become more data-driven, more metrics-driven? How do we move away from vanity metrics and collect metrics that actually matter? Okay, that's good. Thank you.
I'm used to working in an environment where there are gatekeepers, and
Yeah.
I sort of think about the absence of that role. And I think whilst a project team might understand what needs to be done to implement that project, they may not understand the implications of what happens in a year's time when it comes to billing and stuff like that. So data quality, data duplication, and those kinds of ramifications. They may not have a picture of really how the business actually works. They may just have an idea of how their one small silo works.
So that's a super interesting point, because it comes back to, so Marcelo and I had this conversation a couple of weeks back when I was in Seattle, and we were talking about operations as the systems thinkers. I take your point that your ops team no longer has situational awareness of really understanding how those things do, but I believe that somebody has to have that systems thinking, big picture, situational awareness of what's going on, and build a framework, because no individual delivery unit, two-pizza team, that we were talking about before, is going to understand the whole system. And the system, the complexity of the system goes up to the square of the moving parts. So there was a really interesting conversation I was having with guy who was a Forrester analyst, Charles Betts, and one of the things that he was talking about is that we're pushing down, MTTR and change failure rate, so it's all going in the right direction. So if you look at the sort of quadrant, all of the known knowns of bugs, we're driving these out, and our MTTR is going down. But our systems are getting more and more and more and more complex. So what happens is that when something goes wrong now, it's going to be in this quadrant of the unknown unknowns. You're literally not going to have a clue what's going on. So what's that going to do to your MTTR? Actually, MTTR is going to go back up again. It has to, which I really like, because he's sort of saying, and John Allspore and the guys in this thing called the Stellar Report talk about this dark debt. There's technical debt in your application stack that you will only find when something goes wrong. And so troubleshooting and finding that, it's not just a matter of redeploying the thing. There is something in there that's broken, and you've got to find it. Does that make sense? Do you think that the operations should be the systems thinkers? We should be the people who are maintaining that situational awareness? And
there's a big part which is it's fine to have this awareness, but it needs to be tied to the business, right? So if we call them the operations team, then they need to be much closer to the business at the same time than they are
Mm-hmm. So you were saying it's not just enough to have an awareness of the complexity of your Kubernetes environment and the number of microservices and the dependencies and all this sort of stuff. You're saying a modern IT organization must understand the organizational goals and why I'm doing that stuff.
Because it's about decisions, right? And decisions is driven by the business goals to some extent, on the value they see. So they need to be very much aligned with the business. If they have a very hard choice to make, and that's going to happen, they do the right choice for the business.
Okay. Making the right choices. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
With systems thinking though, doesn't that exist in sort of the SRE space too? If you're like looking at like chaos engineering and stuff like that, you kind of have to know all of the moving parts of what it might affect. So
Yeah.
do you think that that's something that would just be centralized to IT, or kind of a principle of like the entire space?
I think it has to be designed into the system. So I mean, obviously, no person can understand the detail of everything. But if you're designing the components and the way those components interact and those guardrails, there should be a way that if this thing goes wrong, that you understand the causal chain and the impact and the dependencies that would have. And you've designed the monitoring and you've designed the incident response and the observability, to push back on that. One of the things that's against topics we're talking about was, so who here has a configuration management database, Cmdb? Yeah. What the hell does a Cmdb mean in a world where you've got containers spinning up every second, VMs spinning up every...
Keep up to date, you remember the on-premises like servers.
It depends what you mean by CMDB. That's a very loaded term. So that's why
ITIL has a very clear definition of CMDB, I would like you to know, but anyway. But the question is so my challenge back to Microsoft is, what does a next-gen CMDB look like? And if we want to understand these dependencies and have this systems thinking, I think there's a role. Just metadata tagging is not good enough. Why can't I add custom properties to custom attributes? So if each server is an object, I can overload that object with custom attributes. In fact, I can overload that object with custom methods. So I can say, cms.server or, sitecore.server.kill yourself and pass it the GUID of that server. Do you know what I mean? That thing, and then it kills itself because it understands how to kill itself, which is a graceful, degraded, drained shutdown or whatever. Or maybe it's a, cms.server.upgrade yourself. But we don't have an object-oriented representation of that environment that has these custom attributes and custom methods to do something against. So,
yeah, and again, it's a loaded, CMDB is definitely a loaded term here because there's different things. There's the configuration items, which represents the intent that you have on the configurations, which is one thing. And that's and this is what drives the change, because the human changed the intent of your infrastructure.
Yep.
But then you've got the other side, which seems also what you're talking about, which is the result of this intent, which is what is the live thing, the live system you have.
So it's the chef cookbook versus the in-spec tests. Do you know what I mean? There is the thing of, this is the way I want it to be. This is how I'm going to validate that my intent has been correctly actioned by the, there's an assertion, and then there's a validation. This is all making sense, by the way. And if anybody's bored shitless, you're more than welcome to leave. I won't be offended. But
There's an interesting line there around systems thinking between the cloud and the enterprise, the platform of the enterprise, I think as you were describing. I don't know, from my perspective, working in Azure team, I have no idea what's production.
hopefully somebody does.
Could I serve you better building on my platform if I knew what production was? Yes. Would you tell me? Don't know. Do you want to tell me? Is that? So
I mean,
as a cloud platform,
I think,
all a black box.
Yeah.
Everything running on top of it.
Everything's production, right? Everything's production.
Yeah.
It's just a different.
Yeah.
But there's a different level of trust across your promotions, right?
Mm.
So then you don't need the same level of trust, and it's about managing the trust across your estate. So everything is production to some extent, at least should be, or treated like this. It's just that the impact of having one stage to another stage, one environment to another environment, doesn't have the same impact. And what's important is the learning we take, the feedback loop.
The feedback loop, yeah.
And it's the feedback loop which is the key element of that. So everything's kind of production. It just teaches you when it fails something different.
Okay, so, yeah, feedback loops. Just another quick question, because one of the conversations I had with Marcelo, we were talking about who treats their CI/CD platform as a business critical, mission critical, level 1 thing within their organization. It's not something that's dicked about by the developers. It's treated the same way as your core SQL Server environment or your core. So we've got some yeses over there. Okay.
We do, but bizarrely our ops function don't. If we have problems with our Opera server,
Yep.
it's not deemed to be a set 1 by our operations team.
Okay.
Because apparently it's not stopping the business running.
But-
Quite bad, you can't actually fix anything if something went wrong.
But then,
that's a quite bizarre conversation we have. I think we convinced them now. Actually, it is a priority one.
Sorry.
We used to have this conversation with our IT team about email. So email is number 1. So if something breaks, that's either it's broken. So email's got to be as resilient as everything else we do. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point?
who does email anymore?
This was a few years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah. Who used to do Exchange 6.5 administration?
Whatever you use to alert you that something's broken,
Exchange
that
5.
has to be as resilient as the thing that's
Yeah, and this is the point. If we talk about this great change failure rate, we talk about these great rates of change, and we talk about how infrastructure as code and configuration management is driving down our MTTR, but if that pipeline is dead, then your MTTR is now infinite.
Does that mean I need to replicate my communication away from Slack? Like, if Slack goes down,
Well, we made an interesting organisational choice to for GDPR reasons, to turn on the 30-day archiving or the 30-day thing in Slack where it automatically deletes every message older than 30 days. So our Slack lobotomizes itself on a rolling 30-day basis. And it's really annoying when you know that somebody sends you a link to something really good article that you wanted to read and you're only just getting around to it and it's not there anymore. But that's another, but it does force you to go and put some more stuff into Confluence and a long-term storage. So it has its pluses and minuses. I still find it intensely frustrating. So I'm just working through the list, Marcelo. So we've talked a bit about observability, security, compliance, and governance, putting the guardrails in. We've talked about service thinking, performance and scalability. Like historically, there was, well, certainly enterprise organizations I worked with, there was a separate team whose job was performance, and then there was a separate team whose jobs was capacity planning, basically. We actually used to have separate agents running on the box that were just capacity planning agents, so they could pull together all these stats about, where the boxes were going. 5 minutes, okay, great. Like, what does anybody want to offer an opinion on what does capacity planning and performance management mean in a cloud world?
We still have problems with the capacity planning because ultimately it's still sitting on solid infrastructure at the back end and in some data center somewhere. And if we want to spin up more of a certain type of VM and we're on a certain saturation of that, there's a limited capacity. And we bumped into that quite a lot in Microsoft. So it turns out the cloud isn't infinite.
Has anybody else had a thing where has anybody else ever had a situation where you've tried to scale it, you've tried to instantiate an instance and the API comes back? No.
at a super low scale, the first time, so a lot of our classes we spin up VMs for people, and I recently swapped over to actually managing it myself. I used to outsource that to somebody else, and because I had a fairly new AWS account, it's like, right, okay, I want 30 VMs for my 30 people in my class. No, sorry, you've got a limit of 10, because that's the default when you start saying, oh, right.
Shit. And there's a 24-hour SLA on getting your limit changed.
I managed to sort it out just in time. But yeah, it happens both at the massive end, but also
cloud services, and those cloud services haven't been, they've been in existence for a long time. So we're kind of pegged to kind of the older infrastructure. So again, there's only so much of that, a lot has been deprecated now. So again, you try to scale it, it's not. So we've had to kind of overscale some of our infrastructure to guarantee that we've got that growth capacity, which of course costs more money. So we have interesting conversations with Microsoft about it.
Intel's not making more fourth generation Xeon processors. That's our challenge.
Yeah. We got 3 minutes to get upstairs to start the panel session. So we're going to wrap it up there. Sorry, hopefully that was interesting. It was designed to be a free-form conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm going to take a photo of this and write some of the stuff up. But hopefully you found that interesting. So thank you very much for coming along to my session. Thank you. We got a panel. Yeah, we got a panel session. So we're all going to head upstairs to the big room. Then we're just going to have a